big grasshopper, big praying mantis thing, big eyes and kind of a triangle head.
Wow.
This body that you've got, it's nothing but a soul container, and we can't do anything to hurt that or steal it or damage it. And sleep paralysis doesn't result in my wife getting in her soccer mom van and taking my two daughters and traveling up and down that ridgeline for hours looking for me.
Wow.
Right? This big bug came like through the screen door on our deck. This is a deck that's 3 stories up above the backyard, and there's no stairs. So you can only get to it through the screen door off of the master bedroom. And just walks right up through that, and he's standing over me, and he's conveying to me telepathically.
What does the bug look like?
Big grasshopper, big praying mantis thing, big eyes and kind of a triangle head.
Wow.
And so, but I wasn't afraid. It was
similar to like Close Encounters of the Third Kind mantis.
I don't remember any mantis, and
I thought there was maybe there's a Mandela effect or something. But anyway, you keep going.
Maybe so. All I remember is the little gray guys and maybe a tall, skinny gray guy.
I thought there was a tall
big eyes,
mantis.
Yeah,
in the back. Yeah,
I don't remember any mantis in that, but he was chastising me, and he was sort of lecturing me in sort of a condescending, instructional way, commanding me to stop wiggling around. And he's telling me, look, this body that you've got, it's nothing but a soul container, and we can't do anything to hurt that or steal it or damage it. We can do a lot of damage to your body if we want to. We don't want to. We're trying to help you. So quit squirming around, and we're going to do some tune-ups here. We're going to work on it a little bit.
What do you think the tune-ups were? How were they trying to help you?
I don't know. He just, and I never got that level of detail. All I got was, don't be afraid. There's nothing to be afraid of. We're trying to help you. And as an example of how bad it can get, he opens his little triangle face, opens up, and these jaws open up, and he starts tugging chunks of flesh off of me, from my cheeks, my shoulders, and he's flinging it, and there's blood spatter and everything, and it should have been absolutely terrifying.
Were you bleeding? And
I felt the tug on my face.
But he's ripping skin off your face.
Yeah, I felt the tug.
What?
And there's blood splashing, and the whole time he's like, "See, this is what we could do to you easily, but we're not doing that."
Afterwards, were you bloody due to that?
No, never any indication of anything. This is like mental imagery that I'm receiving.
Okay. So
this
doesn't feel like a physical.
No, it did feel like it. It felt like he wanted me to feel.
He wanted to simulate that you could. Okay.
Right. He wanted me to know that they could rip me to shreds if they wanted to, but they couldn't get to my soul. And even if I died in that process, I'm going to come back. There's a soul that's going to come back, and who knows? I might come back as one of them and come at them. So that was all that in a very intense moment, that lesson that just quit squirming around and let us get this freaking done. Okay. And then boom, I was out. That was it. So that was what made that so powerful scientifically is sleep paralysis doesn't last for 5 hours.
Yeah.
And sleep paralysis doesn't result in my wife getting in her soccer mom van and taking my 2 daughters and traveling up and down that ridgeline for hours looking for me.
Wow.
Right? And so we can get into more sleep paralysis in a little bit. So there was,
Did you have any after effects physically? Did you have any marks, any implants?
Not that I know of, but here's a really interesting aspect to this phenomenon.
Mm-hmm.
Is that pretty much across the vast majority of cases that I've read about, there is a common factor that I like to coin, or I like to capture in the term irrational ambivalence. And what happens to a lot of experiencers is they have these anomalous events that occur and that are independently corroborated by a next door neighbor, your family, your loved ones, your teammates. And they're like, don't you remember this or that? Don't you remember that you walked back into the foxhole? Don't you remember that we were looking for you? Don't you remember the cop? And there's often a like, yeah, but so what? And so it's an irrational response to something that should be at the forefront of all of your behavior. You should be looking into that. I should have been checking for my cheeks or whatever. Nothing. I did tell my wife about that dream. And she was like, yeah, okay. And it was this ambivalence, this laissez-faire attitude towards it all. So it's almost as if in a hypnotic suggestion, you're told, in many cases, we are told, don't worry about this. You won't need to remember this. And I think it's an act of compassion so that we can lead relatively normal lives after we are let out of the cage, right? The lab rats get released into the backyard, right? And go live your life.
That's what, Mario Woods, stationed at Ellsworth Air Force Base in South Dakota, he had an experience where he was abducted. He's a mutual friend. I know you guys are friends as well. And he said that the beings came up to them. They kept saying, do not fear, do not fear. That was like this recurring kind of trope.
The words do not fear travel through my body like a vibration, like a hiss. But I kept hearing over and over, do not fear, do not fear. Do not fear.
That's wow. Do you have a sense? Because he says he became interested in things after that experience that he wasn't prior. And he realizes, he's like, I know this sounds kind of weird, but he's like, I got very interested in pyramids. Is there something like that for you where you became newly interested in certain topics? Did you have a mission that you didn't prior?
I didn't become interested in pyramids, not right away. But I did change my behavior that in a way that was reported to me by my wife and my daughters, which was I suddenly wouldn't squash a bug or use a fly swatter. I would go to the kitchen, grab a glass, tell my daughters, don't squish them. I would escort these bugs out of the house.
Specifically all animals or bugs?
Pretty much all animals.
Because I was going to say, if it was the bug thing, then it might have been the mantis specifically that you felt an affinity for.
Right.
But it was like dogs too, you felt like more loving towards, or was it bugs?
That's a good question. And I don't, my first wife passed away in 2014.
I'm sorry.
A wonderful and angelic soul.
Yeah.
And sometimes I wonder if my current wife is her reincarnated.
Wow.
Or if there was some, because they're so similar. They're wonderful, absolutely wonderful people. And so I should ask my daughters that if my attitude towards our Labrador Retriever changed at all. I don't have a conscious memory of anything changing. But I do remember the bug behavior, the insect behavior, which is really interesting. And up to that point, I mean, I thought like the vast majority of of humanity or our society in the mid-90s, all aliens were the little gray guys.
Yeah.
All aliens looked just like Steven Spielberg represented in Close Encounters.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And so I was totally unprepared for anything looking like a bug. And so that reinforced my perspective at the time that it was just a dream.
Yeah.
So that was one, what I call an irrefutable case that I cannot scientifically dismiss as a dream, because a dream doesn't result in your wife searching for you for hours and calling the cops.